I stood there in my black dress, the one he always said made me look like a femme fatale from an old movie, and all I could think about was the roses. They were red, deep blood-red crimson that seemed to pulse against the mahogany wood like a heartbeat refusing to stop. Marcus hated red roses. "Too cliché, Elena," he'd said on our 3rd anniversary when I'd surprised him with a bouquet. "Anyone can give red roses. Give me wildflowers. Give me something that means something." But here they were, dozens of them, covering the casket that supposedly held what remained of my husband after the car accident that had stolen him from me 5 days ago. The priest was speaking. I couldn't hear him over the buzzing in my ears, that constant static that had taken up residence in my brain since Detective Morrison had knocked on my door at 2:47 a.m. last Tuesday. "Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry to inform you." The details came in fragments: a winding mountain road, a guardrail that gave way, his car tumbling 300 feet into a ravine, a fire that burned so hot they had to identify him through dental records, a closed casket. I hadn't seen my husband's body. I hadn't touched his cold hand or kissed his forehead goodbye. All I had was a mahogany box covered in roses he would have hated and the pitying stares of 200 mourners who seemed more interested in watching the young widow's breakdown than in grieving the man they claimed to love. My mother-in-law, Catherine Chen, sat in the front row, daubing at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. She hadn't looked at me once during the entire service, not once. But that wasn't unusual. Catherine had made her feelings about her son's choice in wives perfectly clear from the moment Marcus brought me home. "She's a waitress, Marcus, a waitress with student loans and no family connections. What could you possibly see in her?" What he saw in me, I never fully understood. Marcus Chen was the heir to a pharmaceutical empire, a man whose family could buy and sell small countries, and I was just Elena Brooks from Riverside, California, a girl who'd been putting herself through community college one double shift at a time. But he'd chosen me, he loved me, and now he was gone. My phone vibrated in my clutch. I ignored it. Whoever it was could wait. The whole world could wait. It vibrated again, and again. The woman beside me, Marcus's cousin Victoria, whom I'd met exactly twice before today, gave me a sharp look. I mouthed an apology and silently drew the phone from my purse, intending to shut it off. The message on the screen made my blood turn to ice. Unknown number. "I am still alive. Trust no one." My gasp echoed through the church. 200 heads turned toward me. The priest stopped mid-sentence. "Mrs. Chen, are you all right?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. My fingers trembled so violently that the phone slipped from my grasp and clattered against the wooden pew. Victoria snatched it up before I could. Her manicured nails dug into my flesh as she guided me toward the church doors. "You need air, Elena. You're not thinking clearly." I said, "Give me back my phone." I wrenched away from her, causing a scene that would fuel gossip for months. Catherine Chen's gasp of horror carried through the silence. The mourners whispered behind their hands, and I didn't care. I didn't care about any of them. Because if that message was real, if Marcus was somehow impossibly alive, then nothing else mattered. I grabbed my phone from Victoria's purse and ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, a modest Honda that Marcus had always teased me about keeping, despite having access to the fleet of luxury vehicles in the Chin family garage. "You could drive a Porsche, baby, a Maserati. Hell, I'll buy you a Bugatti if you want." "I like my Honda. It's mine. I earned it." He'd smiled at that slow smile that always made my heart skip. "That's why I love you, Elena. You're the only real thing in my entire life." I locked the doors and stared at the message again. The number was unfamiliar, not saved in my contacts, but the way those words were typed, the all-caps urgency, the dramatic flair, that was Marcus. When he texted me during important meetings, desperate for rescue, his messages always came in the same frantic format. "Save me! Dinner with my mother is killing me. I would die for a slice of your lasagna right now. Still alive in this board meeting, barely." Still alive? My fingers shook as I typed out a response. Me. Who is this? The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I held my breath. Unknown number. Can't explain now. Being watched. Meet me tonight, the place where I first said I love you. 10 p.m. Come alone. Tell no one. The place where he first said I love you. Our spot. The overlook at Mulholland Drive, where Los Angeles spread out beneath you like a glittering carpet of stars. He'd taken me there on our 6th date, and as the city lights twinkled below, he turned to me with an expression of such vulnerable honesty that I had momentarily forgotten how to breathe. "I know this is crazy. I know it's too soon. But I love you, Elena. I think I've loved you since you spilled coffee on my $3,000 suit and told me it was my fault for standing in a stupid place." I laughed through the memory, through the tears. Was it possible? Could he really be alive? And if he was, why would he fake his own death? I looked back at the church where mourners were beginning to stream out, shooting confused glances toward my car. Catherine was standing on the steps, her face a mask of cold fury. Beside her, Andrew Palmer, Marcus's best friend, was watching me with an expression I couldn't read. Andrew. He'd been the one to identify Marcus's dental records. He'd been the first person at the scene of the accident. He handled everything, the funeral arrangements, the police interactions, the media statements, with an efficiency that it seemed helpful at the time. Now it seemed suspicious. Trust no one. I pulled out of the parking lot before anyone could reach me, my mind racing faster than my car. I couldn't go home. The Chin family mansion, my prison disguised as a palace, would be the first place they'd look for me. Instead, I drove to the apartment I'd kept, even after the wedding, the tiny studio that Marcus had never understood. Why do you need it? We have 8 bedrooms, Elena. 8! It's my space, my safety net, just in case. Just in case what? I'd never answered him. How could I explain that some part of me had never truly believed in our fairy tale, that a girl like me was always waiting for the clock to strike midnight? The apartment was dusty, unused for months, but the security system still worked. I locked every deadbolt and sank onto the Murphy bed that creaked familiarly beneath me. Think, Elena, think. If Marcus was alive, why would he fake his own death? What could be so dangerous that he'd need to disappear? And why would he wait until his own funeral to contact me? I pulled out my laptop and started digging. Marcus worked for Chin Pharmaceuticals, the company his grandfather had founded in 1962. On paper, it was a legitimate operation, insulin, blood pressure medications, cancer treatments, but I'd overheard enough hushed conversations to know there were shadows beneath the surface. A late-night phone call 3 months ago. The shipment has to arrive before the FDA inspection. I don't care what it costs. A meeting with men in dark suits who didn't give their names. The senator is taken care of. He won't be asking questions about the clinical trials. An argument with his mother that I'd witnessed through a cracked office door. This has to stop. I won't be part of it anymore. These aren't just numbers, Mother. These are people dying. At the time, I'd convinced myself I was misunderstanding. Marcus was a good man. He wouldn't be involved in anything that could hurt people. But what if he tried to blow the whistle? What if he threatened to expose something so damaging that his own family had tried to kill him? I searched through old emails, looking for anything unusual. Marcus had always been careful to keep his work life separate from home, but he'd occasionally forwarded documents to himself through his personal account. Then I found it. A folder labeled E, Do Not Open, dated the day before the accident. My hands trembled as I clicked. Inside was a single video file and a document titled My Confession. I pressed play. Marcus's face filled the screen. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually immaculate hair disheveled. He was in what appeared to be a hotel room, though I didn't recognize the generic art on the walls. Elena, his voice cracked on my name. If you're watching this, something has gone wrong. I pray to God you'd never see this, but I need to leave you something, some explanation, some chance at the truth. A sob escaped my throat. I pressed my hand against the screen, desperate to touch him. I should have told you everything from the beginning, but I was a coward. I was scared that if you knew the truth about my family, about me, you'd leave. And I couldn't bear that. You were the only good thing in my life, Elena, the only clean, pure thing in a world covered in blood. He took a shaky breath. Chen Pharmaceuticals has been falsifying clinical trial data for over a decade. Drugs that should never have been approved have been pushed through by bribing FDA officials and threatening researchers. Thousands of people have died from side effects that were covered up. Thousands more will die if someone doesn't stop it. I felt sick. The room spun around me. I've been gathering evidence for 2 years, working with a journalist, Diana Torres, at the Tribune to build an airtight case. My mother found out last week. She gave me an ultimatum: destroy the evidence or she'd destroy me. She meant it literally, Elena. I found a memo on her desk. She's planning to have me killed and make it look like an accident. The date was set for last Tuesday. Last Tuesday, the night of the crash. So I'm running. I've arranged for an accident that will buy me time to disappear, a fake death, a new identity. I plan to come back for you, to explain everything, to take you with me. But if something went wrong, if I really am dead when you see this, I need you to finish what I started. Tears were streaming down my face now, blurring the screen. The evidence is in a safety deposit box at First National Bank in Santa Monica, box 1547. The key is hidden in the spine of your favorite book, the one you keep on your nightstand, Pride and Prejudice. I slipped it in there our first month of marriage. He leaned closer to the camera, his eyes burning with intensity. Trust no one, not Andrew. He's been working with my mother for years, feeding her information about me. Not Victoria. She's not even really my cousin. She's an operative my mother hired to spy on the family. And definitely not anyone who claims to be helping you. A pause, a softening. Except me, Elena. If you get a message from me, if I find a way to contact you from wherever I am, that you can trust. I love you. I have always loved you, and I am so sorry I brought you into this darkness. The video ended. I sat in stunned silence, the laptop's glow the only light in the dark apartment. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. By the time I reached Mulholland Drive, the city lights had transformed Los Angeles into a sea of golden stars. The overlook was empty, just as I'd hoped. I parked and waited, my heart hammering against my ribs. Every headlight that passed made me flinch. Every shadow seemed to move with sinister intent. At 10:07 p.m., another car pulled up beside me, a black SUV with tinted windows. The driver's door opened. Marcus stepped out. For a moment, I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. He looked different, thinner, stubbled, with a fresh scar running along his left temple, but it was him, my husband, alive. I threw myself out of the car and into his arms. He caught me, burying his face in my hair, his whole body shaking. "I'm sorry," he whispered against my neck. "I'm so sorry, Elena. I should have told you. I should have taken you with me, but there wasn't time." "You're alive!" It was all I could say, all that mattered. "You're alive!" He pulled back, cupping my face in his hands. His eyes, those beautiful, dark eyes that had captivated me from the first moment, searched mine with desperate urgency. "We don't have much time. They're watching you. They've been watching you since the funeral." "Who? Your mother?" "My mother, Andrew, a whole network of people who will do anything to protect the company's secrets." He glanced around nervously. "Did anyone follow you?" "I don't think so. I was careful." "Good. That's good." He took my hands, squeezing them tight. "I need you to get the evidence from the safety deposit box tomorrow morning as soon as the bank opens. Diana Torres is ready to publish. She's been waiting for my signal. Once the story breaks, we'll have protection, whistleblower immunity. But until then, we're in danger." He nodded grimly. "More danger than you can imagine. My mother has people everywhere, police, federal agents, journalists on her payroll. That's why I couldn't tell you before. The less you knew, the safer you were." "But I wasn't safe." The anger surprised me, erupting from somewhere deep inside. "I was alone, Marcus. I thought you were dead. I've been drowning in grief for 5 days while you hid like a coward." "Elena." "No." I shoved him hard. "You don't get to apologize and make this okay. You let me bury an empty coffin. You let me listen to people talk about you in the past tense. Do you have any idea what that felt like?" He caught my wrists, not hard but firmly. His eyes were wet. "I know. I watched the funeral from a parking garage a quarter-mile away. I watched you stand over my casket and fall apart, and it took every ounce of strength I had not to run to you. But if they had seen me, we'd both be dead right now. Really dead." The fight drained out of me. I collapsed against him, and he held me while I cried. "What do we do now?" I finally asked, my voice muffled against his chest. "Tomorrow, you get the evidence. I'll be nearby, watching, protecting. Once you have it, we go straight to Diana. We give her everything. And then," he tilted my chin up, his thumb brushing away my tears. "Then we disappear. Together this time. I have passports, money, a safe house in Portugal. We can start over, Elena. Build a real life, a life that belongs to us." "And your mother? What happens to her?" His jaw tightened. "She'll go to prison, along with Andrew and everyone else involved. The evidence I've gathered, it's damning, irrefutable. There's no amount of money or influence that can save her." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that after all of this, we could have something resembling a happy ending. But a small voice in the back of my mind wouldn't stop whispering, "Trust no one." The next morning, I walked into First National Bank of Santa Monica with my heart in my throat and the key from Pride and Prejudice clutched in my sweaty palm. The safety deposit area was in the basement, accessible only through a series of locked doors. A middle-aged woman with silver-streaked hair led me down. "Box 1547, right this way, Mrs. Chen." She unlocked the outer layer and left me alone in a small private room. The box sat on the table like a bomb waiting to explode. I inserted the key. It turned smoothly. Inside was a flash drive, several folders of physical documents, and a burner phone. I stuffed everything into my oversized bag, my hands trembling with adrenaline. As I emerged from the bank, blinking in the California sunshine, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Well done. Meet me at the old textile factory on 3rd Street. Diana is waiting." Something felt wrong. Marcus said I should go straight to Diana Torres, but he hadn't mentioned a textile factory. And why would a Tribune journalist meet at an abandoned industrial building? I thought about the video again, his words, his warnings. Trust no one, except me, Elena. But what if that's exactly what someone would want me to think? I made a split-second decision. Instead of heading to 3rd Street, I drove to the Los Angeles Tribune's main office. At the front desk, I asked for Diana Torres. The receptionist frowned. "I'm sorry, who?" "Diana Torres, an investigative journalist. My husband was working with her on a story about Chen Pharmaceuticals." The woman typed something into her computer, then looked up with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, ma'am, there's no one by that name on our staff. Are you sure you have the right publication?" A chill ran down my spine. "Yes, I'm sure. Check again." "I've checked twice. We don't have and have never had an employee named Diana Torres." My vision tunneled. My thoughts raced. If there was no Diana Torres, if the journalist Marcus had supposedly been working with didn't exist, then who had he really been meeting with for 2 years? And who had I really seen last night on Mulholland Drive? I drove in circles for an hour trying to make sense of the pieces, the text messages, the video, the meeting at the Overlook, the non-existent journalist. Something Marcus had said kept nagging at me. "Victoria, she's not even really my cousin. She's an operative my mother hired to spy on the family." But I'd seen Victoria at the funeral. I'd watched her snatch my phone, the one with the "I'm still alive" message, and slip it into her purse. And for a fraction of a second, I'd seen recognition on her face. What if she wasn't an operative for Catherine? What if she was working with someone else? I pulled over and opened the files from the safety deposit box. The documents were dense, full of chemical formulas and redacted names, but one folder stood out. It was labeled Operation Phoenix. Inside was a photograph. 2 men standing beside a car. One of them was Marcus. The other was Andrew Palmer. They were smiling. They were shaking hands, and the caption beneath the photo read, "Project leaders celebrate successful completion of Phase 1, Taiwan, September 2022. September 2022, 6 months ago. Phase 1 of what? I kept digging. Internal memos, financial transfers, a timeline of events that slowly painted a picture so horrifying I could barely process it. Chen Pharmaceuticals wasn't just covering up bad drugs. They were deliberately creating them, designer diseases with custom cures that they could price however they wanted. Create the problem, sell the solution, profit off human suffering on a scale I couldn't fathom. And Marcus wasn't trying to expose it. He was running it. He and Andrew had designed the entire operation. Catherine Chen wasn't the villain of this story. She was the one trying to stop her son from destroying everything her family had built. The car accident hadn't been an assassination attempt. It was real. Marcus had survived by sheer luck. And now he was using me to retrieve evidence that would help him blackmail his mother into silence. I was the pawn. I had always been the pawn. The burner phone in my bag started ringing. I answered. "Elena," Marcus's voice, smooth as silk. "Where are you? Diana is waiting." "There is no Diana." Silence. "I know what you did, Marcus. I know what you are." A long pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, colder, harder, the mask finally slipping. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. You never loved me. I was just cover, the perfect, oblivious wife who'd never ask questions." "That's not entirely true." He almost sounded amused. "I did love you, Elena, in my own way. You were refreshing, genuine, a reminder of what normal people are like. But you're right, you were also incredibly useful. A woman with no connections, no power, no one who'd come looking if you disappeared." My blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that you know too much now, and I'm saying that you should have gone to the textile factory like I asked." A black SUV appeared in my rearview mirror, then another, and another. "They'll make it quick," Marcus said softly. "I owe you that much. Goodbye, Elena. The line went dead. I floored the accelerator. The Honda screamed in protest as I weaved through traffic, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my temples. The SUVs followed, relentless, gaining ground with every second. Think, think, think. I needed help. I needed someone who could protect me from the army of mercenaries closing in. But trust no one. Unless Catherine Chen, Marcus's mother, if she really had been trying to stop him, if she was as much a victim of his manipulation as I was, then maybe she was my only chance. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through my contacts. Catherine's number was saved from a dozen awkward family dinners. My finger hovered over the call button. Could I really trust a woman who had always hated me? A bullet shattered my back window. I pressed call. She answered on the second ring. Elena, what do you want? Your son is trying to kill me, I screamed into the phone. He's alive. He's been alive this whole time, and I have evidence that proves what he's been doing. A long pause, then quietly, tell me where you are. I rattled off my location, swerving onto the 405 freeway. There's an underground garage beneath the Chen Pharmaceuticals building. The code is 7294. Get there and I'll protect you. Why should I trust you? Because my son killed my husband 2 years ago and made it look like a heart attack. Because he's been poisoning this family for decades. And because I want to see him burn even more than you do. The line clicked dead. I had no choice, no other options. The SUVs were still behind me, and I was running out of road. I headed for Chen Pharmaceuticals. The underground garage was dark and empty when I arrived, my tire squealing on the polished concrete. I punched in the code and watched the heavy doors slide shut behind me, tutting off the SUVs. For a moment, I sat in silence, gasping for breath. Then the elevator doors opened, and Catherine Chen stepped out. She looked nothing like the cold, imperious woman I'd seen at the funeral. Her face was drawn, exhausted, lined with grief. She walked toward me slowly, her heels echoing in the cavernous space. Give me the evidence. I clutched the bag to my chest. First, tell me everything. Catherine stopped, studied me. Something like respect flickered in her eyes. My son was always brilliant, she said quietly. Brilliant and broken. His father saw it, tried to correct it. Marcus killed him for it. The heart attack? Poison, untraceable, his own creation. Her voice was flat, emotionless. I didn't want to believe it. I spent 2 years convincing myself it was impossible. Then I started finding things, documents, emails, evidence of horrors I couldn't comprehend. Why didn't you stop him? I tried. Her laugh was bitter. He's been 3 steps ahead of me at every turn. The car accident? I thought I'd finally caught him. I arranged for his brakes to be tampered with, hoped the mountain road would do the rest. I stared at her. You tried to kill your own son? He stopped being my son a long time ago. Catherine moved closer, her eyes burning with desperate intensity. But he survived, and now he's more dangerous than ever. He has allies everywhere, resources I can't match. The only way to stop him is to expose everything, burn it all down, including my own empire. That's what the evidence you have can do. I thought about it, about Marcus's smile, about his hands on my face last night, his promises of Portugal and fresh starts, about the life I'd dreamed of and the monster I'd married. There's something else, I said, something you need to know. The person at the Overlook last night, the person who texted me from the church, I don't think it was really Marcus. Catherine frowned. Explain. The text came during the funeral. Victoria grabbed my phone right after, and the man I met, he was different, thinner, a scar on his temple. He didn't kiss me the way Marcus always kissed me. Understanding dawned in Catherine's eyes. Victoria, of course. You said she was an operative. Not mine, Marcus's. She's been his right hand for years, loyal to the point of madness, and she's a talented mimic. With the right preparation, the right surgeries. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. Dear God, he's not in the city at all, is he? He's using Victoria as a decoy while he... The lights went out. Emergency red bathed us in an eerie glow, and from the darkness, Marcus's voice echoed. Hello, Mother. He emerged from the shadows like a nightmare-given form, not the thin, scarred man from the Overlook, but the real Marcus, polished, pristine, with that smile I once loved and now saw for what it truly was. Empty, predatory. I should have known you'd figure it out, Elena. He sighed, almost admiringly. Victoria did her best, but you were always perceptive. It's what I loved about you. Stay away from us. Catherine stepped in front of me, her body shaking but her voice steady. Or what? You'll have me killed again? Marcus laughed. Please, I've been running circles around you for years. Everything you think you know, I let you know. Every move you've made, I orchestrated. Then why are we still alive? I demanded. He tilted his head, considering. Because I want to offer you a choice, Elena. The evidence you're holding doesn't just implicate me, it implicates my mother, too. Years of cover-ups, bribes, crimes she committed long before I was ever involved. If you give it to the authorities, you destroy both of us. Good, Catherine spat. Is it? Marcus's smile widened. Think about it, Elena. My mother goes to prison. I go to prison. Chen Pharmaceuticals collapses. 30,000 employees lose their jobs. The drugs that actually do help people, the insulin, the cancer treatments, they disappear from the market. Thousands die while the world scrambles to replace them. I wavered. He saw it and pressed his advantage. Or you can give me the evidence. I'll destroy it. My mother retires to some island somewhere, out of the picture forever. And you and I, we leave together. The fresh start I promised you. Not Portugal, somewhere better, anywhere you want. You're insane if you think I'd go anywhere with you. Am I? He moved closer, and I saw the flash of a gun at his hip. Because from where I'm standing, you have two choices. Come with me and live a life of luxury and freedom, or refuse, and I kill you both right here. Catherine grabbed my arm. Don't listen to him. He's lying. He'll kill you either way. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged, or maybe I really did love you, Elena, and a part of me still does. There's only one way to find out. The gun cleared the holster. I made my choice. The sun sets differently in New Zealand. I learned that in the months after Los Angeles, after the trial, after everything. Here, the light doesn't fade so much as transform, painting the sky in colors that have no names. I sit on my porch every evening and watch it happen, and I think about everything that brought me here. Marcus is dead, the real death this time, not the fake accident I'd mourned or the elaborate deception I'd survived. Marcus underestimated me in the end, reached for his gun a second too slow, never expecting the knife I'd hidden in my boot. The knife Catherine had slipped me in the parking garage, as if she'd known all along what it would come to. Self-defense, the courts ruled, no charges filed. Catherine kept her word. She turned herself in, testified against her son's entire network, dismantled the empire she'd spent her life building. She'll spend the rest of her days in a minimum security facility, writing her memoirs and fielding calls from documentary filmmakers. I couldn't save my son, she told me before she went away, but maybe I saved you. That's something. I don't know if it's enough. I don't know if anything will ever be enough to balance the scales of what Chen Pharmaceuticals unleashed on the world. But I'm alive, and every morning I wake up free. The evidence I retrieved went to every major newspaper, every federal agency, every international watchdog organization I could find. Diana Torres may have been fiction, but the real journalists who picked up the story were very real indeed. The fallout continues. Arrests, trials, settlements, reforms. It will take decades to fully unravel what Chen Pharmaceuticals created. Some nights I dream about Marcus, the real Marcus I knew, not the monster I discovered he was, the man who used to wake me with kisses and tell me I was the only genuine thing in his life. I wonder sometimes if any of it was ever real, if some small part of him truly did love me, buried beneath all that darkness. I'll never know, and maybe that's okay. My phone buzzes on the porch railing, a text from the victim support group I joined reminding me of tomorrow's meeting, another from a reporter requesting yet another interview I'll decline, and a third from an unknown number that makes my heart skip. Just kidding, it's my therapist from her new phone. I'm working on that, the paranoia, the way my pulse spikes at unfamiliar numbers or unexpected knocks. Trust takes time, Dr. Walsh tells me. You'll learn to trust again. Maybe not everyone, maybe not easily, but you'll get there. I want to believe her. The sun slips below the horizon and the first stars appear. I close my eyes, breathe in the clean Pacific air, and feel something I thought I'd lost forever. Hope. It's fragile, tentative, a seedling pushing through scorched earth, but it's mine.